in this particular case with this particular drug, not only is it extremely devastating in terms of what it's doing to communities, but the drug itself really has some horrible effects. And so I want to talk about that today. Talk about, what that drug is, where it's at mostly, and, how this should go, how we should go about trying to address this. So today I want to talk about the drug Tranq. It's called Tranq.
The point that there's limited news
I just
coverage.
want to know what your viewpoint is.
Do because major news organizations have been told on, what they can report on.
The people's voice. Welcome back. Welcome back. This is the people's voice. I am Trey Evans, and I am the people's voice. Thank you again for checking out the podcast this week. As always, it is greatly appreciated. As always, we take time out to thank everyone who is listening to the podcast today. We do understand that you could be utilizing your time to do something else, so we do appreciate you spending your time equity with us. As always, if you find this information to be valuable and enlightening, we do ask that you subscribe to the podcast. That way you'll be notified when each episode is released. Each episode is put out on every podcast platform on Fridays. And then you can also, if you'd like to view the video, we put the video out on YouTube every Wednesday. But as always, we thank everyone for listening and welcome to the People's Voice podcast. So today I want to talk about a drug that is really starting to, an illegal drug, let me be clear about that, that is really starting to wreak havoc in terms of deaths and addiction rates here in the United States. And the drug has, I guess at this point would be considered to be maybe underground. I say it's underground because I didn't know of it before, but when you start doing research into topics, you come across some of these topics or names for these different scenarios that's going on. But in any event, I want to talk about the drug Tranq today. And this drug Tranq is really, as I said, starting to infiltrate in a huge way. And it's one of these drugs that are, once again, these are manufactured drugs. These are not just, your typical, I don't want to say typical, but when I say manufactured, I mean these drugs are produced by drug manufacturers and they are hitting the streets. And of course, once they hit the streets, the addiction to these drugs is very difficult for many people that get hooked on them. But in this particular case with this particular drug, not only is it extremely devastating in terms of what it's doing to communities, but the drug itself really has some horrible effects. And so I want to talk about that today. Talk about, what that drug is, where it's at mostly, and, how this should go, how we should go about trying to address this. So today I want to talk about the drug Tranq. It's called Tranq. So for this, I had to kind of look up a definition because, like I said, I really didn't know much about the drug myself. I saw, a couple of reports and then jumped on it to the CDC site to kind of get a better understanding of what's going on. But I'm reading here from a definition from the Halley Center, and Halley Center is I think this is what is a Halley Center? Well, I'll find out what they do here in a second, but I think it's a treatment center. But They gave a good definition of what Tranq is. So I'll just read that here briefly, and then we'll continue to go from there. So Tranq, it says here, is the street name for a drug known as Xylazine. And this drug Tranq is a drug that was used or is used in veterinary medicine as a sedative and pain reliever for animals. This drug, in its design, is supposed to have a calming effect, and basically causes muscular or muscle relaxation, and we're supposed to relieve pain. Now, and if you've ever had a pet and taken it to the vet, especially if you have a vet you have a pet that is extremely active and needs to have some type of procedure or needs to be checked, and your vet has probably used this drug and you've seen the effects of it if you've been a pet owner. But this drug, Tranq, which is known as on the street, derives from Xylazine, which is, again, a drug that veterinarians use. The thing about the drug, when it hits the street, and I'm reading here again from the Hanley Center, it says that it's liquid. Basically, it gets dried out, and then the dry portion of the drug is then added to pills as a powder or mixed with other powders. It says, like any tranquilizer, it can reduce anxiety, induce sedation, again, muscle relaxation. And what is commonly happening is that it's being mixed with other potent drugs that are on the street, such as heroin, and also you're seeing this a lot with fentanyl and other opioids that are on the street. The appeal, if you will, for drug users or drug addicts is that the combination of this Tranq drug, which is, again, comes from Xylazine, which is used in veterinary medicine. The appeal for addicts is that the drug, once it's mixed with fentanyl or other opioids, it can basically give that person a long period of sedation or being in a sedated state, which, oftentimes many drugs do, illegal and legal drugs. So if you're a drug user, obviously this drug becomes very appealing because now you are able to retain your high or your sedated state for much longer of a period than you would be just taking, and I don't want to say your normal dosage, but, just taking drugs, whether it's heroin or other opioids or fentanyl. It provides a longer high, if you will, than just taking it without this drug, Tranq. And it's really causing a lot of issues. I saw a report here on NBC News. They did a report about this where they talked about the effects of Tranq and what it's doing specifically in Philadelphia, specifically in the Kensington neighborhood. It's really having a huge effect on it. So let me play this story right here from NBC News because, like I said, they highlighted this, and then we'll go from there after that.
Tranq Tranq first appeared in Philly more than a decade ago, mixed in with heroin and fentanyl, but by 2021, it was found in 90% of all street opioid samples, and it's quickly spread throughout the country, increasing in some regions almost 200%. Tranq overdoses can't be reversed by Narcan, and many users develop flesh-eating infections that can lead to amputation if left untreated. In Kensington, limb-saving care takes place at street level on tables like this.
Have you saved lives on this table?
Yes, we absolutely have. Our team constantly saves lives.
Sarah Laurel runs Savage Sisters Recovery, providing care and housing for addicts and cleanups for the neighborhood. She draws on her own near-death experience with addiction to help those in need.
Seeing my friends on the street with their limbs exposed does not make me want to get high.
That is, again, that's a report from NBC News about the addiction of Tranq in Kensington, which is within Philadelphia. But as the woman was saying there, in terms of some of the side effects of this drug are truly devastating. It's just not, and I don't want to use the word typical, but some of the side effects from this drug is serious. As she was saying, this drug, especially for those who are heavily addicted on it, some of the symptoms of it can lead to all type of different infections. As you heard there, you have literally flesh bacteria or flesh bacteria eating infections where your skin literally begins to peel and become affected and can peel from your limbs, things of that nature. Just reading here again from the Hanley Center about some of the symptoms here. It says that in terms of the effects, it says Tranq usage can result in skin and soft tissue lesions, included ulcers. Some of these wounds will appear on the legs and also, on the arms and other places. The usage of Tranq can also lead to unconsciousness when you are using it at high dosages, which oftentimes that you see, unfortunately, in drug addiction. Many times these drugs, once that first or initial several highs that the addict receives, at some point they need to take on more, and then they start to up the dosage or start to up the usage of it. And it says here that when the dosages get greater, it can lead to unconsciousness. And if you have not seen this, and I wanted to pull this up as well. If you haven't seen this, and you can, pull this up yourself as well. Fox News, matter of fact, did a piece, I think this summer. And actually, let me play that so you can see, because the drug itself, its effects literally create not only do you have the lesions with the skin and the unconsciousness, but it literally puts people into almost a zombie state where they're just standing bent over and just not even realizing the space that they're in. But let me play this. This is from Fox, and then we'll go from there. So.
No place in America should look like this. No place in America should it be okay to sell drugs right in front of the cops. It shouldn't be okay to, stick a needle in your neck right in front of the cops. I think when society breaks down that far, you can't help but look at it and say there's a huge problem here.
And for those of you who are listening, I was playing a piece there from Fox News, but one of the things in that video that it shows is not only does it show that, as I was saying, you have people in the zombie state, but you also, some part of that video shows the lesions that these people are developing from a result of using this drug, this Tranq drug. But also I wanted to, point out, the gentleman there said a very interesting piece in that these drugs are literally being sold in what many have called one of the largest open drug markets in the United States, because these drugs are being used and sold right in front of police in Philadelphia, and this is also occurring in other parts of the country. But I just wanted to point that out, as he said there. This is an issue that's occurring right in front of many police officers, because it literally, in the Kensington section of Philadelphia, this has become an open drug market, and there's not much that is being done or can be done to stop this, or I should say, not many have decided to stop it as yet. And the epidemic itself is just continuing to increase. But as I was saying, this is not only isolated to Philadelphia, to the Kensington area. Across the country, the use of Tranq and the use of this drug, Xylazine, is beginning to increase rapidly. I'm reading a case here, or looking at some stats here from the CDC, and the also from the I think the National Health and Statistics, National Center for Health and Statistics, and they kind of have several charts here about not only the increased usage, but where it's occurring most. And I'm looking at a map here, and I'll pull this up again for those of you who are watching the video. And as you can see right here on the map, it shows that the increase in terms of where it's being used the most, you're seeing a huge increase in the northeast, southeast region. This is where you're really seeing a lot of usage in terms of across the country, and specifically in the mid-Atlantic areas, which are Maryland and Delaware, Pennsylvania, which all border each other, is really where you're seeing a tremendous amount of use when it comes to Tranq and overdose usage and also overdoses for people that are using this drug. And this is as recorded as of 2021. So I'm sure later this year you'll see a new, or later next year you'll see the stats for 2023. But really, the use of Tranq is being done or being reported in the east of the country, heavily in the mid-Atlantic, and then across the East Coast. As you start to go out west, the drug is not being used, or at least it has not been reported in terms of drug and overdose deaths. But you're seeing a lot of usage in the mid-Atlantic and in the East Coast. And in terms of who's using it, I think that stat itself, I want to talk about that as well, because what you're seeing a lot in terms of who's using it, it really is a huge difference in terms of the age limit, right? So in terms of the age limit, and again, I'm reading a report here from the National Center for Health Statistics, which was published on the CDC site. And, for ages 25 to 34 and 35 to 44, you're seeing the most, not only the usage of Tranq or Xylazine, but you're also seeing, in terms of the number of deaths, that age group, those two age groups have some of the highest death rates from the use of Tranq. Also, in terms of race, unfortunately, you see the highest usage amongst African Americans, and then second behind African Americans are white people that are using this drug as well, and also experiencing the highest number of deaths as a result of overdose from these drugs. And, this really, I want to talk about this today because I don't know how many people know about this, right? I don't know if you know what Tranq was before I mentioned it today. Like I said before, when I started, I had not heard of this drug, and I'm constantly, reviewing and looking for new information to discuss. So this was new to me, but more than anything, I wanted to talk about where it's beginning to go, and so you can put this on your radar, and also start to talk to friends, family, and community about it as well. The last thing I wanted to talk about was obviously what can be done, right? Because I always like to lead with solutions in terms of how someone can seek help if they are addicted and using Tranq. One of the first things it says here, and again, I'm reading from the Hanley Center, which is a center that helps with addiction. It says here that, symptoms may be similar. In terms of withdrawal symptoms may be similar to other drugs, but in terms of help itself, they really are recommending a full detox that has to occur for someone to be treated from this, because many steps and drugs that are typically used for getting off of addiction, or other steps that are used to get off of addiction, that for other drugs, they're saying that this drug is so potent that is not going to work like it has like it does has in the past for other drugs. In terms of other rehabilitation suggestions, what they're being recommended here is, first of all, the helpline for substance abuse, mental health services. You can call 1-800-662-4357. That's 1-800-662-4357. And this is for the substance abuse and mental health services. And this is a national hotline. And this will obviously, once you call, or if you have someone in your family that is dealing with this addiction, obviously you can call them to begin the process of trying to seek help, and also trying to seek help for those who you may know that are dealing with this. But again, everything that I've read, and I'm reading a lot of different articles even here as I'm talking to you, they're saying that this requires medical treatment. Like, this is not just your typical, I don't want to say typical because there's no drug addiction that's typical, but this is not just your standard drug. The addiction to this is very potent, and then trying to get rid of this addiction becomes extremely difficult because of the deep connection regarding the addiction that comes as a result of being on this drug Tranq. And so I think for me, I think the best thing that I want to do, because I don't want to get too much into a medical conversation, I think, in terms of helping, I'll give out that number one more time, 1-800-662-4357. That's the substance abuse and mental health services hotline for anyone who is currently dealing with Tranq addiction, or if you know somebody that is using Tranq, I would suggest that they call that number to begin the process to come to try to work themselves off of that, because again, it is very addictive, and it can literally lead not only to severe sickness but to death as well. So that is my time for today. I really wanted to get this information out. As always, we ask that if the information is valuable, we ask that you leave a comment on our social media, and then also share this information, because information has no value if it's not shared. You can reach me on any social platform at I am Trey Evans. You can also just Google Trey Evans, the People's Voice, if you want to tap in and leave a comment and also share the information that we provided today. But as always, dreams are not just for sleeping. Please wake up and live your dreams. My name is Trey Evans, the People's Voice. Tell somebody about the dream. Salute. The People's Voice.